Morning, everybody. Today I'm going to look at how to manipulate the way that text appears, choosing different fonts, changing their size, changing their alignment. So when we think about how we want text to appear, we've got the shape, the font. We've got things like italics or bold. We've got its alignment, left, right, or center. And we've got some text decorations like underline or strike through. So we're going to learn how to do some of those things today. So I'm here in Replit, and you can find this under my folder in the team as demo fonts. And here in the body, I'm just going to put a header, and I'm going to say that it's going to be font to demonstrate on. Okay, and if I go ahead and pop that out, it just looks like that. Just a very default font, not bold, nothing. We can see that it is a serif font. It's got these extra little ticks on it. So one of the things that we want to think about are different types of font. That's the wrong thing. So I'm going to list some fonts, font families. Okay. I'm going to put a header on here that will say font. So I don't know if you know about font families, but they're important. We've got serif fonts, and those are the ones that have the extra little ticks at the edges. So Times New Roman is a great example of that one. We've got sans serif fonts, and they don't have that. They're a little bit cleaner, and they're often used for headings, though as you can see on this page, this is a sans serif font. Okay. There is also a monospace font family, and those are kind of old school computer style fonts. Every letter takes up the same amount of space. They're really horrible to read, and mostly you shouldn't use them. The only place I found that they're really useful is if you're building a stopwatch application. That way it doesn't sit there and change its size as it changes. And then we've got cursive fonts. Those are ones that are designed to look like handwriting. And finally, we've got fantasy fonts. So these are ones that are a little bit more stylized. You know, they're really for particular genres. So there's our list, and we'll learn later on how to do a full list, but there's our list of font families. Okay, so I'm going to go into styles here, and I'm going to style up this header to show some of the things that we can do. Our selector is a header, and if I want to change what font it is, font family, and notice that it's giving me a bunch of options here, and notice that there's a list of them that are comma separated. When you're trying to choose a font, you have to realize that the computer that's looking at your web page might not have the font you want. If I choose, I'm not sure that I know a good one that a Mac won't have, but if I choose Papyrus here, the computer that's looking at it may or may not have it, and I don't know what it will choose by default. It'll probably go back to that typical serif font. In this case, it does have Papyrus. If I change this and check and see if it has, well, I can make one up and it won't have that, right? Platypus font. And it goes back to that default sans serif font. But what if I really wanted it to be some kind of a cursive font? Well, that's why you have a list of fonts that are comma separated, and you should always end with the big font family, one of these: serif, sans serif, mono, cursive, or fantasy. Okay, because it's going to go in order of that list, and it's going to stick with the first one it runs into that it knows about. So if I choose platypus and cursive and reload, now it goes to a cursive style font. So that's how we do font families. If it is one that has spaces in it, like you see here, Courier New, Courier and then monospace. You need to put those single quotes around them. So if I want a serif font, I might look at a list like that. Don't forget to put the semicolon at the end of that line. And I end up with that same default font there, because Times New Roman is a common one. Color, we've already talked about color. I can say it's orange, and now it's orange. I'm going to go to more of a navy so that it stands out. Reload. There. Now it's readable, but you can kind of tell that it's a different color. And then I want to talk about the size of the font. So there are a bunch of different units that it talks about here. The most common ones to use are pixels, EM, and REM. So pixels are, I guess points probably are there as well, but if I choose like 12 pixels, that's going to set the default size a little bit smaller than what it is. Or I can say 24 pixels, and it's going to go quite a lot larger. More common is to use EM or REM, and those both have to do with a percentage of whatever the current font size is. So 1 EM would be the current font size. 2 EM would be twice the current font size. So I could say 1.5 EM, for instance, should work. And that's about where it is. So if I go to 2 EM, this is often how I end up doing my, there we go, it doubles in size. And then REM is basing itself not on what the current font size is, but sort of what the default font size is for that page. So it's a little more reliable. It's a little more steady, because if you're inside something that has a larger font size and then you double it, it's going to get so much bigger. But if you use REM, then it's going to always use sort of the same foundational number. So 2 REM stays there. 3 REM goes even bigger. And if I go to 0.5, I get quite small. So we can make that font smaller as well. So EM and REM are really good units to use. Let's talk about aligning text now. Text align, we can use center, left, right, justify. Those are the ones that really you want to use. So if I do text align right, I reload, and it comes all the way over here to the right. If I want to center it, which is a pretty common one, then I reload, and it comes right here to the center. And I go ahead and up that font size again, because that is, I'll stop and look for it a little bit. There we go, font to demonstrate on. One of the things I like to do for headers is to do kind of a reverse look. Do a black and a white. There we go. So that reverses it a little bit, and I actually really like that. Papyrus Fantasy, I think, is where Papyrus lives. There we go. Anyway, there it is, and we could even go to Purulin and cursive. See if we've got Purulin. You might recognize it when we have it show up. There it is, and if we change that to say Riverdale, you will recognize this for sure. There we go. That is the school's font. There are some rules about how we use that when we're publishing as a school. Really, it should only be used for the school name or sports teams, things like that. So we've talked now about how to size our fonts, how to change what the font family is, how to change the color, the text alignment. Let's talk about underlining. So that shows up in a text decoration. So we can underline, right? We can, maybe I'm wrong about strike through on that. But underline is a common one. And links, A tags, They always start by default with an underline, so if you want to get rid of that, you can say text decoration none. Okay, there we go. There is also, oops, I did not mean to get that. I'm going to undo that if I can. There we go. There is also text font weight. I should leave text decoration there for the sake of font weight. You can do, I'm going to bring that back up. You can do it by number. The bigger the number, the bolder it is, or bold, or bolder, or lighter. So if we do a nice light, or as light as it gets, Purulin does not seem to pay attention to that. So I'm going to go with, let's go with a nice, let's try that one out, a nice sans. There we go. So there it is in that. And then if I change this and go sort of a little bit of the opposite end of the spectrum, at an 800, we see how thick those lines get. So that gives us that to control our style, sorry, our boldness. And if I just choose bold, it comes to kind of like that. If I change to bolder, it doesn't really change much, does it? Not noticeably. Okay. So font style is where we get in things like italics. So we drop in some italics. There we go. And one of the nice things about having these drop downs that show up is that they can show you some of the things to mess around with. See what oblique is going to do to this one. Not really anything. So we'll look that one up. I'm not sure exactly what oblique is supposed to do for us. Okay. So these are things that also you can get a bunch of information on by going CSS font weight, for instance. And W3 Schools is usually a very clear place to get good answers. So it's going to give you some things about it, the property, when it was supported by different browsers, and then describe the different values that are available. So if we do font, let's see if there's font style. There we go, and here are our values. The browser displays an oblique font style. I should know what that is, but I don't. So there you go. And that really takes care of selecting your fonts and styling them up pretty well. So feel free to apply that. Please do apply that to your website review page. You might do, oftentimes headings end up with a font family that is some kind of a sans, because those headings look a little bit cleaner that way, and often the main text, so you could do this in articles or maybe paragraphs, those font families often end up being somewhere in the sans serif. So if we do this one, or serif fonts, sorry, not thinking clearly, in the serif fonts. So I'll put that colon back and we can choose kind of a, there we go, that'll give us a serif font. Cambria, Quotient, a bunch of things to choose from there. So if I reload that, I don't have any paragraphs, but it made that heading into a sans font. I don't love that particular default sans, but there it is. So if we put in to our index.html I did not close off my unordered list, shame on me. A paragraph, here is some paragraph text. We'll come back and we look there. There we go, that's kind of what we get. That's not a bad font. But it's, you know, a lot of it is preference and choice. As they say, there's no accounting for taste. So feel free to check out this particular one, create your own, copy this one if you want and play around with it, and then please do apply it. In another video, we'll talk about applying Google fonts to your styles, and that's an exciting way to get access to very specific fonts. Thanks, everybody.